Hello and welcome to Get the Gist podcast. I'm your host Ruben Fukan. In this podcast, we speak with industry leaders on how they drive operational efficiency in their business using advanced technologies like AI. Today, my guest is Peter Jorgensen. I had a very interesting conversation with Peter a few days back on the application of AI in his organization, and I'm very excited to explore more about that today in this podcast. Peter, welcome to the show.
Ruben, thank you so much for having it. And I did really enjoy our conversation. A lot of people don't really get how significant and how fast AI is coming. So it was a delight to speak with you.
Yeah, likewise, sir. So let's start with maybe your background and if you can talk a little bit about yourself and what does Easy Peasy Accounting do and how do you help your clients?
Great. Well, I'm a 40 plus year entrepreneur. Just that's what I like doing. And one of the things I've always liked doing is helping businesses succeed. That's been my primary focus. I grew up in Minnesota and I spent 32 years in Southern California. So I have both a strong work ethic and a diverse business background. And then I came to the Philippines 13 years ago, and it's been just a wonderful experience learning how to work with Filipinos, bring technology and the right support system. So, we started Easy Peasy Accounting 4 years ago, and the conversations you have about automations and AI is exactly what we do. So I'm really excited about meeting you. So thank you, Ruben.
That's great to hear. In terms of the accounting world, right? Let's start from the problems that exist, right? So even before we go to the solution, which is automation and where AI comes in. So what are some of the big challenges that you face from an operational perspective, either for your administrative back office stuff or when it comes to interacting with your clients?
Well, let me just start off by saying that AI is super important today. I mean, people always talk to me and they say, "Well, won't AI take over your business?" No, AI will accelerate our business, and that's really what's happening. It's the same thing with manufacturing. People thought, manufacturing and there's going to be no jobs. No, people got smarter and they leveraged robotics and stuff in that world. So it's the same thing happening today. And in our case, we use AI on different levels with our clients. AI is it's just critical. I mean, if you think back, 1980 was the personal computer. Wow, what a change. 2000, the internet came along. What was it? 2008 or something. The iPhone came out and the smartphone was there. And then in just the last year, 2 years, but really the last year, AI has just hit the forefront like a storm. But if you don't know how to implement it, and most people don't, then that's where you really need consultants or people like yourselves that can really help with the automations. I mean, I know you and I don't know each other well. We haven't actually worked together, but I know from a synergy standpoint, you really get what the problems are. And the problems in accounting are that everything's different. Everybody's using different platforms. There's different payment gateways. And as much as a person thinks, well, you can just have AI go and do that, you can't. You have to actually set things up. You have to train the AI. But once it's working, it's a beauty. And we do use it in our company, and I can share that at any time you like. But that's my take on what we're doing and the problems. Just having all the transactions in accounting doesn't help. You've got to know what to do with those transactions. But AI is great at analyzing it. So I don't know if that gave you a good enough answer. I don't want to go into too much detail and lose people.
No, no, absolutely. And that's a great starting point. So I think it gives us a good way to dive into the problem and into the solution space. And like you have said that, yeah, I mean, on accounting, every client is different. They use different systems. They have different processes that you need to adapt yourself to.
Different
So
payment gateways, a lot.
exactly. Yeah, absolutely. So, can you talk a little bit about how do you approach this problem? Where does AI come into the picture here?
Well, just in a few things like in property management, I'll just drill down on one aspect. In property management, you've got all these different building owners, and they all have their own lease agreements. And so when a property management company comes in and takes over for them, all of a sudden they've got all these lease agreements that are different for this building owner and this property than another building owner and another property. And so being able to take and gather all that information effectively, loading it into an accounting system so they can track it, because accounting's not just expenses and receivables. There's more to it than that. And so what we do is we take those lease abstracts, we run them through AI. We've got scripts written out that extract all the key data points that we want, and it does it literally in seconds. And then we go in and we can put that into an accounting system. Sometimes they have templates, sometimes they don't. If we can do automations, so much better, but not always the case. But probably in your area, you've got workarounds, I'm sure, to do that. But just gathering that information takes seconds rather than, well, it would take an hour or two for somebody to go through a lease and abstract because the wording's different. But AI doesn't have a problem with that as long as you coach it on what to look for. So that's just one element. I mean, I can go on from there, but there's a lot of key points.
No, no, absolutely. So, would love to, I think, from an audience perspective, because you deal with a very specific industry, right? Property management and on that. So, understanding the nuances of that industry, what are the kind of key challenges, and it gives the audience the perspective of understanding all the different areas where AI fits into that cycle. So, I mean, it's great that you're sharing some of the very niche problems in this space. So, would love to know more about when you looked at automation, right, in your business. Uh, how did you get started, right? So, I mean, of course, AI is usually uh, a, a technology that is very very new, as you have said, right? So, and as business, it takes time to adapt to and adopt new technologies like AI. And it's very impressive that you have already incorporated AI into your business. So what was the thought process, what was the process in how you identified that, okay, AI is probably the solution that you need?
Okay. Well, let me start off by saying I have a lot of quotes. One of them is that, fingers dirty, knuckles bleeding. And everything you do, you've got to get in there and work at it and find out what really needs to do. You got to get your fingers dirty. If you just continue to hand things off to people in business and you don't correlate yourself with what needs to happen, you get lost. And then the other thing I like to say is, knuckles bleeding. Do it long enough that you really understand. And so in our case, we've been in business 4 years, and I've read every single email that comes and goes in the company. It's an arduous process. We get a lot of emails with a lot of clients sending us. But now the beauty is that we're implementing, and we've been working on this for a year. I wish I had you doing it for me a year ago. We'd probably had it done a lot quicker. But in contrast, what we've done is we've developed a methodology so that when our clients send us an email, that email is read by AI. It's loaded into our project management system. And then so that email is tracked right there as a milestone. And then all the tasks it breaks down, and then it uses an API and loads all those tasks as individual items as subtasks under that email. So nothing gets lost. We really can stay on top of everything. Doing it manually, it's easy for things to slip through the cracks, but AI catches details that you won't even notice, and it creates tasks for it. So it's really a beautiful thing. We've been testing this for about 3 months now. We're rolling it out with one of our clients right now, and he wrote back and was concerned that the subject line had to be just right. No, it doesn't. AI can handle it. We just need to make sure that when we're reading through everything, it's unique to us. It doesn't inhibit AI's ability to move beyond every email subject line being the same. So, but one of the comments he had was one of the things he really enjoyed about working with our company. And I think he's been with us for over a year now. He said, the simplicity of just being able to offload our problems to you in an email and it gets done. And so on our end, that sounds great, but it's very difficult. Um, if you can imagine having a lot of clients and you've got a lot of emails coming in and you're trying to track all that through an email inbox, forget it. You'll never do it. You need to have something like project management, and you need to use AI. And within our project management, I can go in and I can say, which of our staff has the most open tasks, and it'll come back and give me a report and tell me, by breakdown, who's got the most open tasks. So I know where to go to look and find the problems, make sure that person is, are they having problems? Do they know what they need to be doing clearly? Have we given them all the support that they need? Have we given them all the training that we need? And lastly, do they have any personal problems in their life? So those are the four aspects that we look at every time. And then we can go in and, it doesn't replace people, but it leverages their ability to perform, and it leverages our ability to continue to deliver a quality service.
That's a fantastic point that you made. In fact, that is my next question. Is that as a lot of businesses who get into AI, one of their biggest concern is that how do we address apprehension in people, because they look at AI as a sort of a threat for their job role, right? Or a threat as replacing people, which in reality it's not. The right way to implement AI is to really augment people, right? And the challenge there is, the threat is not from AI versus people. It is basically organizations and people who leverage AI is a bigger threat to others who don't, right? So in that process, right? So how did you address the concern, or did your employees have that concern when you were implementing AI? And how did you go about addressing those?
That's a really interesting question. From their perspective, they didn't really know that we were doing this or how it was working. And what it's done is it's helped them to be a lot more effective. So, there's a couple of business perspectives you could look at this from. One is that, you're going to replace people, but I don't really see that what's happening. If you look at how cost structures work in the industries and the economy over the last 30 years, what always happens is we end up getting more value for your money. So to answer your question, I like to always correlate to manufacturing because it's something tangible that people can see. When they introduced robotics, what you got was more value of a car at an equivalent price. Now, prices still went up, but that was a function of inflation. What they really got for their car, I mean, who thinks about buying a car today and it doesn't have, a dashboard display that's got your maps, connects with your phone. All these things are like, if you get in a car like that, you're like, wow, that's really convenient. So my point is that what we're really doing is delivering greater results to our clients for the same money. And this is the key part that people have to understand. If you're not using AI, you think everything is fine and you're delivering value and you're getting paid and you have long-standing customers. But then all of a sudden comes along another entity and says, well, we can do this, this, and this for the same price. And all of a sudden they're getting all these value-added things. It's hard not to make a change. So if you're not leveraging AI to do that, you're not going to continue to bring the value, and your competition is going to leave you aside. And I got to come back to this one more time. 1980, they introduced the PC. That was a big thing because all of a sudden, that's when I started my business career, is in the 80s. And what happened was, all of a sudden, I could do my own contracts. I didn't have to have a secretary. I could do marketing material. I could do spreadsheets. Of versatility was astounding. But that was me sitting at a computer. Then you move forward to the internet, and that totally transitioned everything because now I had information about how to do things. And then you put all that on a smartphone. Now you have the ability to collaborate as a team with people over smartphones in communication. That was a big blow up. And now we've got AI. So if you're not using it, You're going to get lost, telling you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's so well put, right? And in terms of the transition of technology, because this has always happened whenever a new disruptive technology came into the world, that there were a lot of uncertainty around that. And talking about that, right? So one of the biggest way to really measure the effectiveness or go forward with confidence when it comes to adopting new technology is having a very concrete measure of the return of investment, ROI. Now, ROI for different businesses could mean different things. It could be that does the new technology or AI in this case help increase your business, right? Can you actually generate more revenue using technology, or does it bring down the cost of operations, right? In certain way, or does it deliver higher productivity? Are you able to do more with the same resources with AI, right? So from your business perspective, how do you measure the ROI of AI?
Well, I think there's two things that come into play. One is yeah, a lot more productivity. Could you raise your prices and get more money? Yeah, you could. But I think the real key is that you're going to have more clients, so your revenues are going to increase because now you can have something that makes you different in the industry in your service offerings. That's one thing. The other aspect to look at is the comfort level of your staff. You know, our company, one of the big things, so I always tell our customers, I said, look, they always tell you customer is number one, but they're not. The employee is number one. If you don't put the employee first, they may say that they're going to give you value to the customer and put them first, but if they're a little bit bitter about something, they won't. And so this really allows them to have a better comfort level, more management, more workload management, so that there's not as much pressure on them. Things are more organized and more fluid. So I think it does two things. I think it can increase your revenues, and I think that it can make the comfort level of your company and how it runs a lot smoother. And that translates into, employees with less stress, more comfort, and more productive. So that would be the way I would look at it.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. So before I switch over to what goodgist does and give you an overview of our approach and get your feedback, being someone who has been on the forefront of this technology, so my one last question for you is, what's next for your business, right? So how do you feel that you have maximized the use of AI within your organization, or are there other areas that you are looking at applying AI in your business?
Yeah. Another great question. Well, first of all, our CTO is always looking at ways of being able to leverage AI and develop systems that make it smoother for our clients. I think that, for the future, right now we get all of these aspects implemented by the end of the year, and that really opens up the freeway for us. And what I mean by that is most accounting firms, in fact, I routinely meet with people that are looking at buying and selling accounting firms because I'm always interested in purchasing an accounting firm that's local there and then utilizing them for more of a local and then offloading a lot of the bookkeeping and stuff, with the use of AI and our bookkeepers here in the Philippines. Having said all that, I really feel that the future is going to be more about scalability for us. Most of your accounting firms, when I talked to this gentleman this last week that buys and sells accounting companies, he said that the majority of the accounting firms are 5 to 10 people. Now, my guess was 10 to 20 because I see that. Uh, but we work with bigger companies. In his case, he said 5 to 10, which was kind of interesting for me. Why is that? Well, because one person is at the top of the company and they can oversee only so much. And so with us and the way we're doing things, you know, our clients don't care how many clients we have. They only care that we take care of them and they feel like they're the only client. So how do you do that? I love the example that Microsoft gave in an article many years ago. The question was, how is Microsoft able to grow such a substantial customer base and still know how to manage it and where to go and what to do? And the example they gave is if you're standing on a hill overlooking, just imagine some wheat field in Italy, okay? And the wind's blowing across and you see the reeds bending in different directions and they're all moving. It's the same thing. If you don't have metrics in your company that's reading the AI, or the AI is reading the metrics, excuse me, and then taking all that information and serving it up to you and seeing where the real problems are, if you're not doing metrics, you're missing out. So long story short, where I see as the future is that we can grow way beyond where we're at and continue to deliver the same quality of service over and over again.
That's such a fantastic point and a great analogy that you have mentioned about the Microsoft story. And it's so relevant, right? So, really appreciate you sharing your story. Now, as we move on to the second segment of this, is what we like to do is share what we as a startup is doing and how we are trying to help organizations in the same industry as yours, right? To look at to reduce some of the busy work, right, that goes within that organization and help drive operational efficiency. So I'd like to share a brief presentation and then of course give you a quick demo of the product, and at the end of it would love to hear from your perspective, how do you see this solution? Does it fit into the industry of yours, and are there areas that we can improve? All right. So the key idea of goodgist is that every organization, they have the hidden administrative cost, right? So which is
Yeah.
not really talked about or realized, and which translate into the busy work, which not only uh, costs the business from revenue potential or even the operational cost, but it takes a toll on people. And I think you made a great point earlier that it's not just about customers; it's also about the people in that organization, and that is the big area where AI can significantly save the time and money from that perspective. Talk to a lot of businesses across different industry, we identify that there are like four key buckets that cause this inefficiency. The first and foremost is email and document overload, and this you have also mentioned is that you have to read through a huge number of emails on a daily basis, right? And not just the accounting industry, but it's common across all of those, whether it's a manufacturing company, whether it's a supply chain logistics company, right? So there is a lot of documents that they receive over email, and it takes somebody to go through that, right? To go through and make sure that the documents are proper, whether it's customer onboarding documents, whether it's invoices, purchase orders, and things like that, or even for that matter, contracts. Takes a significant time of a professional's day on an average, right? The second challenge is the manual data entry, because once you receive those documents over email or other means, from there it has to get into a system of record. Like you said, right? It has to get into maybe Zero or other solutions, QuickBooks and others for accounting purpose. So again, there is a data entry that has to be done where somebody has to extract that right information from the documents and enter into that system. The third component is when it comes with doing research, whether it's research for internal tasks or whether it's research for doing things like competitive analysis and things like that, where you are aggregating data online and collecting that, right? So, which can be frustratingly time consuming. And then finally, the follow up fatigue, which probably in the accounting world you can relate better, because every customer needs follow up, right? They would not send all the right documents for whatever reason, right? And that follow up and making sure that everything is there, whether it's follow upping with customers or it could be even vendors, suppliers, or even employees, right? Takes a lot of time and focus. So when we look at the hidden cost of workplace inefficiency, which is not been talked as much in that industry, but it's actually hurting the businesses. Starts with the cost of learning curve, right? Because as a modern business, we have to use a lot of software, right? We have to use starting from the software which we, I mean, it's kind of the native software of any business, which is email, to all the more going over to the complex software like accounting software, CRM, and all of those, right? Which takes time. I mean, every employee has to learn, and as you've rightly said, that in your world, every customer also use different software. They use different payment gateways. They use different systems. So, which means that the complexity of learning all those different software is a huge burden, right? The second challenge is the interfacing between this system, because a lot of this disconnected software, they don't natively talk to each other. So which means that somebody has to do the work of interfacing between one system and the other, right? Which brings up the third problem, which is the context switching. Now, as you are moving from one software to the other and one task to the other, the dynamic context switching definitely takes a toll on productivity. And finally is the cost of cognitive overload, which gets translated as mental fatigue, which I mean, when somebody has to do repetitive task, right, which needs to be done. I mean, without that, without reading a document, you cannot move forward with doing the task, right? So these are some of the key challenges that comes in, and of course the solution for that is automation. But the traditional form of automation, which is like robotic process automation or the other, comes with its own problem. So if the automation is introducing a new software or a software processes that you now have to again learn, and there is a steep learning curve for that. Now you have to maintain that processes where there is a maintenance overhead. So all that it's doing, it's that it's adding more cognitive burden into the process, right? So rather than solving the problems that it automation has to solve, and it may be solving that, but it's introducing other challenges, and of course, along with the cost of ownership, right? So which goes up. So this is the core problem in the industry that we at goodgist have set out to solve. We provide AI assistant that works with the business and not against, right? So the first and foremost is that the key criteria that we started with is that AI should feel invisible. User should not have to learn a new software to use AI, right? So which is why our AI works within email, right? So you just forward the email and the AI would handle the task. It will communicate with people, whether it needs an approval or whether it needs a clarification on things, right? Almost like a human assistant would, right? So which kind of feels natural into the process. So this eliminates the context switching, because now you don't have to jump between multiple software. The AI is handling that data transfer, data entry across that. It handles the unstructured work. So basically, whether it's managing follow-ups with clients, right, or doing reading documents and extracting those and uploading into the right systems, right, or the routine communication. And then it helps professionals and business focus on what matters rather than having to do the routine or repetitive task. And finally, the our pricing is usage based, so that it's almost like pay for the work that the AI does. So rather than always saying that irrespective of whether you're using that automation or not, paying for a software doesn't make sense, right? So it's only when a AI does something that you pay for that solution, which makes it cost effective. So in terms of the real world use cases that we focus on, are divided into those five areas. The first and foremost is, of course, the document processing, which is automating either processing of things like invoices, purchase orders, timesheets, right, bill of lading, or whatever are the documents that customers receive from their from their clients on a regular basis. The second area is legal workflow, so basically streamlining contract reviews and redlining of that, or ensuring regulatory compliance and monitoring regulatory changes. So those are again some of the tasks that the AI assistant does. On the HR front, we have customers using it for things like resume screening and employee onboarding and things like
Yeah.
that. The business development side, it starts with things like filling up RFP and RFQ responses, which are again repetitive process that sales team have to do all the time, right? So those are some of the areas that again the AI helps. And then finally, on the operational management, whether it's like updating CRM, updating a case management system, or like you have mentioned, updating like project management system automatically by just sending emails, right? And the AI taking care of the rest. So those are some of the areas that we work on in terms of, like I've mentioned, that it's important to measure ROI, and that is what we do actively with our customers, is that we focus on what is the ROI that we have delivered with AI for the business, right? It could be ROI in terms of the revenue that they have been able to generate as compared to the cost, or it could be the time saved for employees, right? So, and we work across both small as well as large enterprises to make sure that customer satisfaction is delivered, and we work very closely with them. So let me take a pause here and get your initial feedback on, do you think that this is something that is useful given your experience in this area?
Well, Ruben, thank you for reminding me how much work we still have to do. Before I got on the call with you, I thought we were doing pretty good, and you brought up so many good points that it really made me realize there's a lot more we can do because we use Pipedrive, and that does our forecasting for our sales, but that doesn't communicate to our software that predicts our revenues for the month. So, yeah, a lot more things. I got to tell a quick story. I hope you have time for this, but many years ago,
Absolutely.
Frank Bettger wrote a book, How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success. And he told the story of how when he was selling life insurance, his buddy set him up, gave him a lead for this guy that needed insurance because he had a big contract coming up. And so they thought, well, there's no way he'll get this. And they wanted to laugh at him that he couldn't get this deal closed. Well, he walked into that guy's office and he sat down and he said, and he saw the stack of all the proposals. He says, well, let me start off by telling you, you can take all those proposals and just slide them right off your desk and into the trash can. And of course, the business owner was indignant, like, well, what are you talking about? And he says, I'm going to offer you something this morning that none of them thought about and none of them can offer you. Let's say that right now, today, you walked out of the door, got hit by a car, and was disabled in any way. That contract that you have would immediately go away, wouldn't it? He goes, well, yeah, it would. And he said, right now, in 1 hour from now, I have an appointment already set 1 block from here for you to go in a doctor, get your physical done, and I can write your insurance policy today. Furthermore, if you didn't have insurance on one of your factories, how well would you sleep at night? And he said, well, I wouldn't. I said, you'd get up the first thing in the morning and you'd make sure that you got your insurance in place for fire protection. So, as many good things as you brought up, you could take all that, slide it into the trash, because at the end of the day, they're going to need somebody like you. You gotta, if you're not doing it, you're going to lose your business. I'm telling you, it's moving too fast. It's moving too fast. You'll get left behind if you're not using automations and implementing AI. So, I know maybe that wasn't quite the answer you were looking for, but that's my opinion. It's not about ROI. It's about saving your business, because it's gonna happen so fast. And once it starts slipping away, you're gonna slide down the hill too fast, and you won't be able to grab onto anything because the whole slide is moving.
Yep, that's a great story, and thanks for sharing that. So yeah, so with that, we have come to the end of our podcast. Hopefully the audience found the discussion really really useful, and the stories that Peter had shared, right, that they're so much relevant, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of businesses can relate to those challenges, right? And in terms of what we do, would love to connect with your business if you have a problem that you feel that needs to be solved, and if you want to, or just have a brainstorming session, or maybe just over coffee, connect and discuss how AI can help your business, right? So we are
Well,
more
absolutely.
than
You brought out about 6 points of things that I thought about that we should do, because I mean, we must use 10 different pieces of software, and integrations between them is always challenging. So we're going to dive deeper into that. And I really appreciate you bringing that up, even though I thought I was ahead. Now I realize how far behind I am.
Thanks a lot, Peter. Thanks for joining me in this conversation and for this very interesting discussion. And would love to get you back sometime soon as you make more progress on how you implement automation and use AI in your business.
Great. Well, thanks for your time, Ruben.
And thanks everyone for joining in today. And we look forward to having you back in the next episode, where we would again talk to some industry leaders about their business and their challenges and how they're using AI to solve that. So thank you all for joining.